What are some basic commands that every Cisco technician should have under their belt? Stick around and find out.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to more of the Cisco CCT. That's right. In this episode, we're going to be talking about basic Cisco commands. Ronnie, what are some of the key goals for this episode?
Well, the goals for this one is fairly simple. If you're going to be working with Cisco equipment and Cisco IOSs, you've got to know at least a handful of commands to at least get started. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to learn everything. For those of you that want to proceed on to actually learn more, make sure you do check out inside of IT Pro TV's courses, the CCNA, as well as, of course, as you choose to go on even further, even more of that's going to land you inside of the CCNP track as we actually have that. So make sure you pay attention there. But here, we're really talking about the basic commands, Wes, that a technician should be able to do if they want to set up a Cisco switch. We've already covered some of them, but I want to go over kind of like the big 5 or 6 that I think that everybody should at least be able to know if you're going to be working with Cisco equipment.
Sure. So where do we get started if we're talking about some of the basic commands? If you can think of one, what's one I should know like off the top of my head right away?
Okay. The weirdest thing is a command that actually only really has one character in it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what you've connected into, Wes.
Okay. So I've got my putty open here, and I'm about to log in. So let me go ahead and do that.
And I see that from a previous episode, you've actually done this with SSH already.
SSH, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're actually using your SSH connection to help us out here.
Okay.
So at this point, Wes, when we take a look at this, will actually show us different things. So go ahead and type in a question mark here before we begin.
All right.
And right here, right away, the question mark, like I said, is a single command for us. But this shows you all the commands that are actually available to you at this particular user prompt that you end up seeing. Okay. And of course, if you check out the idea more, we can also hit the space bar, and that will also give you the other ones. Now, you can actually do a lot as you see it even from right here, but this does not give you the ability to configure anything. It gives you the ability to see some of the things, to actually be able to see the output. Okay. But there's not a lot that you can do here that's going to actually change the configuration of the switch. Okay. So for us to be able to do that, of course, we need to get into our global configuration mode as well. Okay. So we're going to type in the word enable here. Now, this should be one of the ones that we at least basically know. But overall, though, let's just start with this. Okay. Now, when we start with enable, right, this actually helps us to change into the mode here that we want to be able to do. But when we're setting up the actual switch or the router that we're doing, most of the commands, since we're actually both on iOS, on routers and switches, the majority of the times, these are kind of the ones that we want to make sure that we do understand, okay? So the great thing is, whether you're working on switch or router, these commands should work for the majority. There's 1 or 2 that I'm going to show you that's just switch specific since we're on the switch. Okay. But at this point, the main command here, of course, is going to be configure terminal. I always abbreviate it, config space T, but if you want to, you can type out configure terminal. Okay, and when you do that, this is what gets you into what we call our global configuration here. Okay. All right. Now, from here, let's go ahead and type that question mark in again. And this is where you actually can configure all of these different things. You can now see that if you hit the space bar, there's a lot more commands than what you actually ended up seeing in the user mode instead. Okay. So this is where you can affect the switch, or the router that you're actually on. So that's kind of the basic one for us when we start to do this. Okay. So from here, if we wanted to configure something like an interface, we could go ahead and do that as well. So let's type in interface. Okay. And then do a space and a question mark here. And notice at each level, there's actually more of you use that question mark. So you see it depend on, and that's what we call context-sensitive help. I haven't used the proper term here. But you can see we can configure, if you look about a third of the way down, you see gigabit, Ethernet. And as you continue to look, you actually see, the other ones here, port channels, port groups. These are all different things that you'll probably learn about as you continue in your Cisco career. But since we're actually only in the interface, we know that that means that's some type of connection coming into this particular switch, okay? So just kind of look there, because normally if we're doing anything here, let's go to interface and then type in gigabit. And if you want to, you can actually even hit just a tab key, and that will fill in the rest of it. Okay. And then we can do, let's see if we actually have a 0/1. All right. Press enter. So if it doesn't, it's saying, hey, Ronnie, you don't have a 0/1 here. Hit your up arrow again. That's another neat command. And let's go back and let's do a 1/1 here. Let's see if it actually gives us that one. Nope, it doesn't even have that. So let's do a 1/0 or 2. Let's try that here. Okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead. It says it's actually incomplete. So let's go ahead and do a space.
Okay.
And do a question mark. Let's see what else it has for us in stored. Now it says it's an unrecognized command. So, oh, I know why. It actually needs another slash. So go back, hit your backspace, do a 0/1.
Okay.
I forgot. Yep, press enter. Let's see. Yep, see, it actually accepted that.
Okay.
So sometimes you actually see that there are slashes, and then it's usually a lot of times it's just 2 numbers, but this one actually has 3. Now, is there a way I could have actually found that out before I actually kind of led you on this wild goose chase? Absolutely. So let's go back here, type in exit, and go ahead and type in exit again. I didn't realize. Probably should have had you type in. And this is where we're going to type in show.
Okay.
Interface.
Okay.
Actually, let's do a show IP interface. My fault for getting too far ahead. Show IP interface.
Okay.
And then brief. And do a space brief. And here's how you can actually see what I should have had you type in.
There they are. Sure.
I just only had you type in, because I was just assuming it was just 2. But what we see here, right, when we start seeing all these are the interface numbers that we would end up using. And we've already set the IP address that you actually SSH'd into on VLAN 1, okay? So that's another great command. And you can also see the status. When you see the idea of down, down, or up, as you see over there on the right-hand side, if we scroll back up to the top, this actually kind of reveals a couple of things. Notice the term status and the term protocol. Okay. Wes, for us, if we've been learning a little bit about networking, we can actually use the OSI model here to help us out. The idea of status actually tells us that this is a layer 1 issue. Okay. So in other words, status says good. That means, hey, layer 1 is what? Connected. It's working.
Sure.
Okay. Protocol is layer 2.
All right.
Okay. So you can actually think about it like that. For us, if we were to go back to A+, Wes, we can talk about lights is what we can talk about, right?
Yep.
So normally on most of the NICs that are out there, we have a light that's normally on by default, and that actually represents what?
The link light?
Yeah.
Yep.
The power?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Which is layer?
That's layer 1. Power.
one.
Yeah. The electrical communications is all the layer 1.
What about the blinking one?
The blinking one, that's a carrier sense. I believe that's going to be layer 2.
Yeah, that's layer 2.
Layer.
Same thing here.
Okay.
So when we want to ensure that there's connection, there's always going to be that status. There's always going to be that protocol.
Okay.
So if we see something weird, like we come here and we type in the show IP interface brief, and we see status is up, but protocol is down, we know that we're actually dealing with a layer 2 issue instead.
Okay.
So that actually makes sense. And you want to talk about layer 3, there's IP address.
Okay.
So it actually represents that. So you can see right here we get a lot of different information when we start doing this.
Okay.
Now we just want to see layer 1, layer 2. Let's go ahead and let's go to the end there. And now we can type in just show and do interfaces. And you can probably hit the tab if you wanted to.
Okay.
And then do a G 1/0/1.
Okay.
Yep, press enter. And now if we scroll back up just a little bit, you still see some of that same information.
Okay.
Notice it actually tells us line is up, line protocol is up. It tells us it's connected, everything is up. Notice the hardware, once again, layer 1, and then the hardware address that you tend to see, the MAC address, which is layer 2. You see more layer 1 information, MTUs, bandwidth. Actually, that may be even higher layers, I'm telling you. But there's other things here like full duplex that you end up seeing.
Simultaneous two-way communication.
Once again, all that stuff here.
Okay.
If you're not sure, remember that some of this stuff can play havoc on you if you have the wrong interface on the wrong side in terms of the duplex. If one's set at half, one's set at full, you name it, this is some great information that you can use to help you to troubleshoot a little bit more.
Sure.
Okay. So that is another thing that you can actually use here. Okay. And there's even more data and information, that you actually have down here, or it's keeping track of what's going on the interface itself. So some of the weird numbers that you see here, like the idea of runts, right, that you actually end up seeing, or I thought I saw the word runts in there somewhere. Yep.
Right here.
Yeah, like I said, I thought I saw it there. Okay, and giants.
Interesting.
Weird.
What is that?
Yeah. Okay. So remember that as frames come through a switch, right? There's a particular frame size that's used standard. Okay, if you remember what that is.
1,500 bytes.
1,500.
Yep.
Runts are smaller than 1,500. Giants are larger than 1,500.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it just makes sense just a little bit there.
Sure.
But a lot of this stuff, if you actually are thinking that there's something wrong with the interface, it can tell you a bunch of information fairly quickly. All right, now the other one that's more specific to a switch though. Usually if there's issues, especially when you're not sure why a particular port is not working the way you want it to, type in show space VLAN space brief.
Okay.
And this will show you all of the ports in what VLAN. So currently right now, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, VLAN 1 and all the ports are actually in VLAN 1.
Okay.
Okay. Now, right now, those other ones that you see there, the 1002, 3, and 4, those aren't really used anymore. They're there for legacy purposes.
Okay.
But if you go ahead and hit the space bar, let's see if there's any other one that's actually set. And there's that VLAN, the 1005. These are all legacy. Those are different technologies that were used in the past that are no longer really supported. This
Okay.
it says active but unsupportive.
Okay,
So
sure.
you actually see that there. Okay. So if you do create VLANs and you're not sure, like, hey, why isn't this port working? Check and verify it's actually in the correct VLAN. Well, everything's in one particular VLAN right now, but if we were to create VLANs, we need to make sure that the right ports are in the right VLAN.
Okay.
Okay, so that's actually a good one for us to also think about as we go through. So, Wes, a couple of those different ones there can really help you to begin to troubleshoot a little bit quicker as you go through.
All right.
But one of the things that you may also have to do, of course, is verify and check if you have the correct iOS that's run, okay. As well. So let's type in show version. And we've already done this several times during our series here.
Okay.
But what we're looking for here is not where it says bootstrap, where it says ROM, nor bootloader. That's a little bit of a tricky thing that you see there. But you're looking at system image file, which is a couple lines before, and that is also a number that you're looking at as well.
Okay.
So when you're actually trying to check out, and somebody may be asking, hey, is this particular switch in compliance with the iOS version that it needs to be? Here's where you can find that number too, okay? So that one is a big help for us as you start to actually see stuff like that. Now, there's a lot that goes on in that name. We can also see, of course, it's C3750, which tells us it's going to be that particular hardware, and this is based hardware by hardware. The IP base tells you the feature set that's on it, okay? K9 tells you that it can actually do the crypto that we've actually done to set up SSH. So if you don't see a K9 after it, you probably won't be able to set that up. So normally what I try and look for is to ensure that we have the K9. Now, this also, Wes, depends on where you are in the world. Okay. Too. Remember that sometimes it may be that you're actually in one of those countries in which we're not allowed, the U.S. is not allowed to export that type of encryption to those countries. So it may be where you are, okay, that you don't have access to the K9 base there as well.
And that's a big thing too, like the violation of the Wassenaar agreement. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everything like that. Now, the other one that you see, notice MZ in the middle. Okay, when you start seeing something like that. So MZ there tells you that this is designed to run in memory. Okay. But it's currently a zip file. Okay. The Z is for a zip.
It's a compressed image.
Yeah, it's a compressed image as it's stored here. And so in Flash, it's actually stored as MZ, is saying, hey, it should run in memory, but it's stored as a zip file. And then the 122 dash, is that an S8 or 5.8?
It's a 5.8.
Is it a 5.8? Yep, okay. So that actually tells us the version, okay? This one is 12.2-5.8. Okay. There are later versions out there, and you may go, why aren't you running the latest version? Well, there's a couple of different reasons that we may not be running the latest version. One is that we may not have the license for it. Okay, so it's very possible I don't have the license. This is the only license that I have. Two, the way that the Cisco IOSs end up getting, where you can download them if you do have a service contract with them, they normally have a little star that's actually beside the ones that they consider the most stable version. So for this particular one, on the C3750 for this series, the star is still at the 12.2.5.8. And even though there's a 15.1 and a 15.2 out there, it's not considered the one that is actually the most stable at this point. So that's what this one is actually running at, the recommended version as well. Then, of course, there's actually other features that are actually out there. The SE2, of course, represents minor feature variations that you may also see and is stored as a normal binary file or a bin file as where this is stored. We can also see at the beginning here with flash : that tells you where it's stored, which, of course, is flash. So make sure you understand just some of the details there, okay? Of course, now you actually see where it gives you the cryptographic, user licensing agreement. Go ahead and hit the space bar again. And this is where we start seeing other things here. Now, most of this is not going to be upgradable. A lot of this, if anything, this is for replacement of parts. So it's a good piece of information to actually have when you need it to. Also, notice that underneath where it says 52 gigabit Ethernet interfaces, so right about mid-screen there, the line underneath that is what we want to pay attention to. The term password recovery mechanism is enabled.
Okay.
That one is a key factor for us. If you see where it's disabled, that switch is toast if you forget the password.
Oh.
Okay, so you want to make sure that you're careful with that, in changing some of these configurations, so you can actually disable that, and now all of a sudden you're in trouble. If you ever have to do a password recovery, it's not going to allow you to do that too. So just be aware. Now let's go ahead into the space bar again, and let's see the other information. Once again, the actual switch itself, notice 52 different ports that we see, and the software version as well as the image base that it's telling us, and the configuration register too is also listed here. So great bit of, a lot of information that we see with the show version. Now, one last thing that I really want to talk about here, let's go back into our global configuration mode. So configure T or config T. And now let's do a line space CON and then do a 0.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and press enter. And this is our console connection into the actual switch itself, okay? Now, Wes, there's times which you've actually experienced this already, okay? Where you were in the middle of typing and all of a sudden the switch spewed out some data on you while you're in the middle of typing, okay? Annoying?
Yeah, it can be. It's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, but sometimes it can spew out a ton of information if you're not careful. And you're in the middle of typing and now you can't remember like what you typed or anything. The weird thing is if you ignore it, you can actually still type and it accepts the commands perfectly.
Okay.
But most of us hate it. Okay. So the way that we get rid of that, right, depending on what connection that we're in, so we're actually in the console connection. Actually, we're on SSH, but we'll do it for both, okay? But for the console connection here, what we do is we type in logging, and then go ahead and just type in SYNC and then hit your tab key. I don't want to make you spell out synchronous.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and press enter. Yeah, I have trouble misspelling it. So, Wes, I'm not saying you're a bad speller. I'm just saying that I know that I would normally do that. This logging synchronous, what it does is it keeps your prompt, your command where you're typing, always at the bottom of the screen, that last line.
Okay.
So regardless of whether the switch spits out something at you, where you're typing will always be right there, and you'll actually be able to see it. It kind of makes it look like that the information is passing behind what you're typing instead of over or in the middle of you typing. So that is a good command. Now, if I want to set this up on VTY lines, let's go ahead and do that. Let's type in line space VTY and then 0 space 15.
Okay.
Yep, press enter. Okay, and then the same command if it gives us the chance to be able to do it. There you go. Okay, press that in. And now this is true regardless of whether I'm actually on SSH or Telnet or I'm actually on line console. It will always appear at the bottom, so I can actually type uninterrupted without the system log messages actually coming in and interrupting me as well. Okay, so these are all kind of little features that we can end up seeing. Now, Wes, I have not yet even scratched the surface, okay, of the ton of commands that are actually out there to make the switch work. So in stuff like that, I do recommend that you go on and you check out the CCNA inside of the IT Pro TV courses section, because that's where you're going to learn all those different commands as well that will make you become a better technician, as well as help you to work with the technology better. At this level, that should at least get you to this point where now, Wes, all the stuff that we've done in our class, you now can SSH, you can Telnet, you can now actually run a few different commands here. These are actually basic commands that will help you to troubleshoot, as well as to get you access in that you feel comfortable in navigating around a Cisco IOS.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Learning the few basic Cisco commands that you need under your belt. Speaking of more content coming up, we've got a lot more to come when the CCT courses, but stick around, stay tuned, and we'll see you there.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.